Hello everyone. I am SARIN, Product Manager for ISSQUARED at Bulwark Distribution. Thank you for joining today's session, Identity Governance, Securing Digital Transformation. So with that, I think it's time to get started. Now I would like to introduce you to the speakers. So we have Pratik Gargia, Regional Sales Manager at ISSQUARED. We have Mukesh Kample, Chief Architect at ISSQUARED. And Rakesh Patil, Principal Engineer from ISSQUARED. So to move forward, so let us look at what is the agenda for today. So we have the introductions from ISSQUARED by Pratik, followed by the product overview, OLM ORSUS Lifecycle Manager, EIAG, which is the External Identity and Access Governance, OAM, this is the ORSUS Access Manager for SSO, MFA, and RBA. And we also have some use cases, and we shall end the session with the question and answers. But as I mentioned earlier, if you have any questions in between, please feel free to use the chat box. So let me give you an introduction about Bulwark Distribution. So who we are. As you all know, we are a cybersecurity specialized value-added distributor for information security solutions. We have 23 years of experience in Middle East, and we are present in India now from the last 4 years. The company was established in 1999 in the Middle East, and in India we have established our office in 2017. And lastly, we also have a KSA office, which was established in 2021. We represent 24 plus technology vendors, and we have 700 plus business partners in Middle East and India, who are our extended arm in all the regions. So why Bulwark? So Bulwark has established an excellent track record in delivering world-class products and excellent customer service. Bulwark partners with best-of-breed technology vendors as ISSQUARED, offering award-winning products with excellent customer services. We deliver round-the-clock value-added services through our partner network across the Middle East, KSA, and Indian subcontinent. We work as an extended arm of security vendors whom we represent in the region, promoting selling the security solutions through our reseller channel partners. So we have dedicated sales, marketing, and technical team who caters to all the products and solutions that we represent in the region. I would like to pass it over to Pratik, who shall give you an introduction about ISSQUARED as a company and what are the offerings from ISSQUARED. So over to you, Pratik.
Do comply to HIPAA standards. So HIPAA is basically the healthcare standards. We do comply because, like we said, like I mentioned, we cater to some of the Fortune 500 companies in the pharmaceutical biotech sector as well. That's a quick overview about ISSQUARED. If you want to know further, you can either visit the website or we can speak later. However, just to elaborate quickly on the services and products we offer. In terms of services, we have on a wide range of services we offer. In terms of managed services, we have the NOC Center, the infrastructure management, we offer disaster recovery. In the professional services, we do IT infrastructure, IT strategies, cybersecurity, we have e-discovery, we offer security operations, vulnerability management, VAPT, threat intelligence, risk management, governance and compliance. In cloud services, basically we do cloud strategies, cloud optimization, cloud transformation. We can actually provide a public cloud or a private cloud. We have a product of our own. And we also do staff augmentation in case any of your customers would look at technical experts to be outsourced. So we can provide that because we have a vast pool, like I mentioned, of technical resources. And we also do consultancy services. And we we have our own NOC and SOC centers in the US and in India. So we can offer our, around the clock NOC and SOC services across the globe. In terms of our unique products, all the products which you see are actually developed by us. That's why we call it as product innovators. ORSUS is basically the combination of identity and access management and ORSUS Access Manager, which is including your SSM, MFA, and RBA, which we are going to look at today. There's another product called External Identity and Access Governance, which is basically for external partners. And in terms of digital key infrastructure, this is again PFX. Key FX is basically another which helps you to implement digital keys and certifications in terms of your coordination with in terms of your emails and signatures. These are the security products, and then we look at EBIS. EBIS is more of a product which caters to your asset management, portfolio management, project management, organization management. Like I said, we want to cater to every single department in an organization. So these are again set of individual products which can be cumulatively integrated with all the other products, and then holistically we can provide an end-to-end solution. UC Flex is basically unified communication where we help customers to make and receive calls all over the world from any devices, from mobile, laptops, over VoIP based solutions. Fabrics is again our cloud infrastructure and HCI solution, which we compete against Nutanix, HP, Dell. This helps you to provide your private cloud, public cloud, or data center consolidation. So that's basically our hardware solution in terms of infrastructure. And StarWatch is our monitoring solution, which we basically offer it more as efficiency as a service for our partners to be monitoring on the NOC environment. So this is a very quick overview about our services. In case you would be interested, feel free to get in touch with a Bulwark team, and we can always discuss any further on those products. If we just go back to the next slide, sorry. Yeah, sorry. You can go to the next slide. So now looking at the scenario in today's environment, in today's digital era, we have several challenges when it comes to security, several challenges for every single organization, whether it's internally, externally, or related to employees. So let's consider three different scenarios where we have an internal organization of multiple users, and then half of the, in today's scenario, because of COVID or whatever, at least that it's become more of a norm that people are working from home. So there are people working from remote locations, from home. So there are several people outside accessing the network, accessing the data outside the network. And then we have a set of customers where company works collaboratively with the contractors, with the suppliers, with the customers, with partners like you, and who are accessing again the organization's database on regular basis. So with so many wide range of people accessing the data of an organization from various locations, there are several challenges, there are several use cases, there are several risk factors, and it has been seen in the past, and it has been published in several reports that a lot of breaches happens because of unauthorized access. 43% of breaches happens because of unauthorized access, whether it's internal or external or from remote locations. 77% of breaches happens through cloud, where people hack into cloud and then get their credentials get compromised. 50% of the the breaches happens because of user inactivity. Sometimes it happens that the employee has changed their department, or the employee has been terminated, or the contractor has been terminated, or the project has been terminated or finished, but the access control continues to be there, which can be exploited by any bad actors. So these are several scenarios where every single organization is at risk of being, hacked in, breaches happening within or outside the organization, and their data is always at risk. And that's where, we have developed these solutions, which, Mukesh will take over from here, and he will basically talk about several use cases which are applicable to any of each of these three scenarios. So thank you very much. I will just hand it over to Mukesh to take it further from here. Thank you. Mukesh, all yours.
Thank you, Pratik. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining the session today. So, platform has been set by Pratik on the session that we are going to have today. So, talking about the risk, nowadays everything is going digital, and we do access, we do work from home remotely, or even we collaborate with partners. We are the business partners, we are working together. So we need to provide the access to the internal environment. So it becomes challenge. And then in these scenarios, there are multiple use cases, right? So we need to have the end user portal where users can log in and request the access, or even there is a authentication scenario where the user should be able to authenticate to the application or the system or the server that they are trying to access. And that authentication, not only just the password, right? So password is still there and it will be relevant, but then along with that, we need to have multi-factor authentication. And with added security to that, risk-based authentication, adaptive authentication, and since we are talking about collaboration within the business partners, the user federation, we may have the data spread across for the users across different directory servers in different locations. So we should be able to build a centralized system which can help us with the authentication, starting with the authentication, single sign-on, multi-factor authentication, risk-based authentication, etc. And once that is in place, then comes the threat related to the access management. We onboard the employees, they get the access over the period of time. They continue to build a lot of excessive accesses, and then that is like a security threat again. These are the internal insider threats. So external threats, access manager can help us from the external threats, and the insider threats where we have the excessive accesses lying around, or stale or inactive accounts because of which there can be a security breaches Pratik just talked about. So we do have the products which can help us in a single platform, multiple use cases, including the authentication, authorization, where we can keep a control on what access is being granted, who has approved that access. Once the access is in place, whether that access is still relevant, then we need to have governance in place, where regular or continuous recertification of the access on periodic basis, let's say quarterly or every 6 months, or at least once in a year, we should recertify if the access that is provisioned is still need to be retained or still valid. So these are the measures that we need to implement in today's digital era. Like and apart from that, then automation comes into the picture, where we can save a lot of cost, and manual errors can be avoided. So the products, security products, can help us with the automation. Automation in terms of creation of the identities, or provisioning of the access or privileges onto the target system or variety of applications. Additional security controls, such as segregation of duties or management of orphan accounts, or the automatic remediation of the out of the process events. So all these use cases we need to address in this today's digital era. So that is where we do have three tailor-made applications: ORSUS Lifecycle Manager, which helps to manage the internal employee identity and access governance; external identity access governance, EIAG. This is the application which helps us to manage and govern the access for the business partners or the external users, vendors, contractors, etc. ORSUS Access Manager provides us with the capability of single sign-on, multi-factor authentication using the third party like a Google Authenticator, or even the OTP-based authentications, risk-based and adaptive authentications. So As we move on in this webinar, we will talk about these products in detail one by one. So let's start with ORSUS Lifecycle Manager. ORSUS Lifecycle Manager is going to help us with automation. Once the automation is in place, we will avoid the manual errors, and also it will be cost saving, so we can reduce the resources needed to do the manual activities such as provisioning, etc. We can implement access security controls, like fine-grained access security controls based on the group or role-based access management, entitlement-based access management, productivity. So lead time to provision the access. What happens? We have the employee joining the organization, and it takes weeks or even sometimes months to get them onboarded, get their access in place. So with these products in place, on the day one when the employee joins the organization, basic minimum access can be granted with the automation in place, and that is where the productivity can be enhanced for our workforce. Unified governance: once the access is in place, we need to continuously keep monitoring if there are any certain activities happening which could cause the security risk, like access is being provisioned directly onto the target. So once the security applications are in place, these are going to be authoritative systems, right? So let's talk about ORSUS Lifecycle Manager. So it is going to be authoritative system. Any access that needs to be requested or provisioned has to go via ORSUS Lifecycle Manager. Anything goes outside of the process, ORSUS Lifecycle Manager will be able to detect and take enforcement action on it, so that that access can be revoked appropriately. So that is where the governance and then segregation of duties, continuous recertifications, and those policies can be implemented. Improved compliance. So since the ORSUS Lifecycle Manager is going to be authoritative system, it will keep track of each and every activity happening across the identity and governance. So any access being requested, who approved the access at what point of time, and then all the audits, including each and every minute events, like when the password was changed or when the user has logged into the system. So all these details will be tracked where we can get, this will help with the compliance. So we'll start with the Lifecycle Manager, ORSUS Lifecycle Manager, where it will help us with the IT compliance, IT efficiency, security, and business agility. Since ORSUS Lifecycle Manager will be authoritative system where the identity and access will be managed centrally, and we can set up birthright access policies using the provisioning policies, or dynamic access using the dynamic groups, dynamic roles. We can set up provisioning, deprovisioning policies, so those can be utilized effectively when the employee is getting onboarded into the organization. So for example, we have employee joining in the organization, data is entered by HR into the HRMS system. So ORSUS Lifecycle Manager will sync that data, and based on the inputs provided, it will intelligently determine what access needs to be provisioned on the day one. Or let's say employee gets terminated, then access needs to be deprovisioned. So what access needs to, ORSUS Lifecycle Manager will ensure all the access is terminated, and employee will not be able to access any of the resources on the last day, working day. So it will provide the capability to reset the passwords in case employees have forgotten the passwords, with the capability of multi-factor authentication, which is inbuilt in the solution. ORSUS Lifecycle Manager comes with the self-service capabilities where end users can log in and request the access, which is like a request-based access as and when it is required, right? And then gatekeepers or managers, supervisors, they can log into the application, they can approve the request, and then workflows will be automated. So any business requirements with respect to the approval workflows can be automated using the ORSUS Lifecycle Manager. It is easy to customize, easy to build a system. And role-based access, group dynamic group management, dynamic access, static group management, which is a request-based access, continuous recertification process for the governance. So these will help us to set up the processes for the identity and access governance. So we will take a look at the ORSUS Lifecycle Manager framework. On the left-hand side, you can see workforce, where typically when the employee joins the organization, their data entry will be done by HR into the workforce system. Once the data entry is done, ORSUS Lifecycle Manager will synchronize that data using the user feed, which we can see here. And then once ORSUS Lifecycle Manager has the data, then it has ability to intelligently determine what kind of a birthright access needs to be provisioned on the day one using the out-of-the-box connectors or the integrations using the connectors. So right-hand side, you can see enterprise resources, including the directory services, REST or SOAP-based applications, on-premise applications, or even cloud applications, infrastructure servers, including Windows, Linux, Unix, or databases. In case if we have some legacy system, so there we can use the ticketing connector integration. So ORSUS Lifecycle Manager comes up with the out-of-the-box variety of connectors that we can see here. So there are generic connectors in case if we have any application where the connector is not out of the box available, and we have an application which supports the REST or SOAP integration or even the scheme based integration, we can easily integrate with a very less lead time, so that the system is live into the production. We'll take a quick look at the different components into the ORSUS Lifecycle Manager, how it will help us to put the governance and the automation in place. As I mentioned earlier, self-service portal usually helps to end users so that they can log in and request the access that they need. Once that access is requested based on the approval workflows, the approvals will be triggered to the appropriate supervisor. It can be multi-level approvals or parallel approvals. So first approval can be secured from the supervisor, then second approval can be secured from the system owner or a group owner or a business owner. So we can set up the approvals as per the business requirements. Then once the request has been sent for the approval to the manager supervisor, they can log into the portal and they can process the approvals. Reconciliation and correlation, where when we integrate or when we implement ORSUS Lifecycle Manager solution in place, very first time we want to sync all the data which is already there. So we may have all the users or privileges provision to the set of users. So we want to sync that so that ORSUS Lifecycle Manager is aware, okay, what is the current state of the system. So reconciliation is the process that helps us. Correlation is the process which helps us to adopt those certain identities which are created onto the target system. Then we can set up the birthright policies, provisioning policies, deprovisioning policies. We can set up dynamic access using the groups or dynamic roles. So that those accesses can be governed. For example, employee belongs to a particular department, or let's say a role which belongs to L1, L2, or L3 category. So we want to provision the access which is appropriate to those category without, so we can design a system that, okay, what is the minimum access needed for the L1 kind of a role. So all the accesses can be configured using our identity lifecycle and role management system. Using the access requests and the workflow integration module, we can easily set up the workflows. Setting up the workflows, if we look at any other competitive products in the market, it is very, like the implementation of the ORSUS IAM or IAG tool itself is a time consuming, and it spans across the year. So here, what we have tried to build a system which can give us the lead time for the implementation in a shorter duration, so that we can up and go and running into the environment in a quicker manner. So workflow system is designed in such a way that any naive user who can log in and design the approval workflows within out of the box options available. Access certifications, we do have access certifications. We can set up the campaign based recertifications if auditors need certain access to be revalidated on periodic basis. So we can set up those campaigns if we want continuous recertification without any manual intervention. So those recertification criteria can be defined on the object level, like a group, role, or entitlement, or application, or identities. And ORSUS Lifecycle Manager itself will govern the periodically for these Yes, I see a question about the USP. So we will talk about the USPs in the following slides. Thank you for that. So audit, compliance and reporting. ORSUS Lifecycle Manager comes up with out-of-the-box audit reports. It's a fine-grained reports who has requested what kind of access and what point of time and who has approved it. Any event that is happening or any changes that happen into the objects, like okay, group was created or group was modified, member was added or removed. So all those audits records will be tracked and maintained into the ORSUS Lifecycle Manager, and those will be available to extract as a reports or even as part of a visualizations. So here we will take a look at what kind of out-of-the-box connectors that are available. So on the right-hand side, you can see enterprise level uh, list of connectors, which is out-of-the-box available, and a list continues to grow as we continue to work with different customers. But then, as I mentioned, we do have a generic connectors, which helps us to build the integration using the REST scheme or SOAP based application in a very short lead time or minimum or no development or customization. We just configure the target with what APIs we want to integrate. Ticketing connectors, we have out of the box integration available for Jira, ServiceNow, and ISSQUARED has service manager as a ticketing system, our own ticketing system. So we have the connectors, but in case if we have any other ticketing system in the organization that we want to use and it has the REST APIs, we can easily integrate that. So we have built our connector framework in such a way that okay, without any coding customization, we can configure like just like a Postman, right? We use a Postman, we provide the uh, uh, REST API endpoint and then authentication parameters, and then okay, what is the work load that we need to submit in a JSON format or any other scheme format. So we can easily build the connectors, and that is the main pain point. So we are trying to and while I'm talking about it, like we'll talk about the USPs, but yeah, this is one of the USP. So yeah, it comes with a reconciliation is a very fine-grained feature into the product. It comes with multiple modes of the policy enforcement. If somebody goes outside the process and tries to touch the access privileges, add some access or remove some access without going through the ORSUS Lifecycle Manager, which will be the authoritative system. In that case, reconciliation can detect, okay, that change has happened. Now, what is the action we want to take? So we can configure what action we want to take on the application basis. Like, okay, for a particular sensitive application, if you want to have a stricter action, like, okay, delete that account or the user's access entirely if something happened outside the process, or inactivate that account, or revert the access which was provisioned. So that is something we can configure and which is available out of the box without any coding customization. With a UI configuration, we can easily make reconciliation flags or settings available. So we already talked about the lifecycle management, where we can integrate for the birthright provisioning or dynamic access. There is another interesting feature that we have is a dynamic management of the distribution list. So creation of the groups itself can be dynamic based on the criteria that we define. So I'll talk about it when we talk about the USPs. Governance, so segregation of duties, SODs, or management of the orphan accounts which are lying around on the target system, so that we can do the cleanup on regular basis, management of inactive accounts, or even the certifications, continuous or campaign based certifications, and then the automated operations. So that is where ORSUS Lifecycle Manager helps us with one platform, any application or system. So yeah, I'll come to that question here on the USPs or the value proposition. So I was talking about the workflows. Workflow building or customization or coding is a pain point. So ORSUS Lifecycle Manager comes with a out-of-the-box options. What could be the scenario, business process scenarios, and it's a drag and drop. You can just configure. Okay, if you want a supervisor approval, or if you want a system owner, a service owner, business owner approval. If you want a group owner approval, and you have number of gatekeepers, and if you want to have a criteria that okay, any 50% of approvers approve the request, then I want to count it as approved or otherwise rejected. So all those criteria are available out of the box. You can integrate with any external system from the workflows, like okay, certain decisions for the approvals to be made based on the external factors. So you want to integrate with external factor like using the REST or SOAP call or even the database call, and then you fetch the data from external system using the filter or criteria, and then you make a decision, okay, whether this request can be processed further. So it's easy to build workflows with multiple options, EAP switch, parallel processing, etc. Quick access for approval gatekeeper change. When we talk about, okay, certain roles, people move between the roles or departments, right? So somebody is a role owner or a group owner or a system owner. Now they have switched their role. So usually when we build the workflows, we do not want to change the workflows because the gatekeepers have changed. So in the UI itself, we can maintain those gatekeepers on a group or object level, like a group, role, entitlement, or application level. And easily the certain authority people can log in or employees can log in and then change the gatekeepers. So that is a easy process. Dynamic distribution lists. This is something comes handy. We all are aware of the distribution list, right? So it is uh, uh, it becomes tough for the MNC organizations to manage those distribution lists. Distribution list is something that you can categorize certain section of employees and add them into that group, which can be used as a email alias, and then you want to communicate. For example, all the employees working out of a particular location, all the employees working out of particular building or a floor, or all the employees belonging to a particular department or a cost center. You want to create the distribution list for them. So you have to create the distribution list. You have to add those employees into those distribution list, ensure that they are removed when they are no longer need the access. If they join that department, we have to add. So that is that maintenance of the distribution list, creation of the distribution list, it becomes a headache at certain point of time, and then it becomes useless to use because we are not sure that, okay, what is the state of that distribution list, whether that is usable or not. Does it make sense? If I send any email to that distribution list, will it reach to the right set of people? So what ORSUS Lifecycle Manager does, which other products, none of the other product has this feature available. So you just define the criteria. I want a distribution list to be created for the cost center. So any cost center that gets created into the system and then users are added into it, ORSUS Lifecycle Manager intelligently detects that, and it will create that group on Active Directory, which can be used as a distribution list, and then manage the membership based on the criteria which is defined. Templates for each type of object. Anything that gets created into the ORSUS Lifecycle Manager, we can define it some template, like a basic parameters, some basic values that can be set, which we do not want to enter every time we create a group or any object. So that helps reduce the pain point from the administration perspective. Out of the box policy enforcement, we talked about reconciliation policies, or even the provisioning policies, deprovisioning policy. Employees status has changed from active to inactive, so we can, and these customizations for the policies, it is easy to set up. So that is why we call it as a USP of the product. You go and configure, any naive user can log in an administrative console, and they can configure the provisioning policy with the drop down and the filters which are available, and it will be easy to configure, and it will be ready to use. For the USPs that we have, most of those we already talked about. So the implementation process and timeline. So we do have team of architects. We have SMEs, and those uh, like we do manage services, as Pratik was talking about the ISSQUARED. So we do manage services, and while we were building this product, our team has worked on implementation of a number of other products in the market. So we know the process, and we have tried to optimize the process, how we can increase the lead time in order to, or decrease the lead time in order to implement the solution in a shorter duration and within the timelines. Continuous certification. So we do have a feature for the campaigns, certification campaigns that can be set up and configured, but continuous certification where no manual intervention, no continuous monitoring needed. ORSUS Lifecycle Manager, once you define the criteria, we want the recertification to happen on quarterly basis for this application or a certain group. ORSUS Lifecycle Manager takes care of it on its own. Like for example, today employees added into the group as a member, ORSUS Lifecycle Manager will keep track of it for like say 90 days, and then on the period when it ends, it will automatically trigger the recertification request. Priority based access, that is something like, okay, we have an MNC and we have thousands or hundreds of thousands of requests are coming into the flow, and then it takes time for processing, an hour, 2 hours. So there are certain requests which are like a priority or urgent or like a firefighter kind of access. So those requests we want to process instantaneously. So ORSUS Lifecycle Manager allows us to put a flow or stream for those kind of requests separately with a priority so that they get the access provisioned quickly. And as Pratik mentioned, we do have managed services, and that helps to implement and provide the post go live support for the application. So next we will talk about the external identity access and governance. So this is mainly for the business partners or the vendors or contractors that we usually collaborate with. So management of the access for the external users. EIAG, External Identity Access and Governance, helps us with a simplified process to manage the external employees access. Usually what happens is we struggle to onboard the external business partners or the contractors into our internal systems, because those are meant for the internal employees or regular employees. We don't want to onboard them into the HRMS system. We are hesitant, right? So that is where it provides us with a simplified process and automation. Obviously, like as same as the ORSUS Lifecycle Manager. ORSUS Lifecycle Manager does the identity and access governance for the internal or regular employees on the large scale base. And even for the external, we do have tailor-made application, external EIAG, for external identity and access governance, and which also does the automation of the provisioning, deprovisioning policies, etc. And it comes with the governance, recertification, and other processes as per the business requirement. As we have seen last 15 years or within last 15 years or so, like we are going digital, and we are collaborating with multiple business partners, vendors, or contractors from different variety of sectors, right? Everywhere we have to work with our like franchisee or legal partners or from the insurance or facilities. So we need to share the resources. We need to onboard them into our internal system and give the restricted access to them. Like, we cannot share each and every access, or we cannot give them the entry the same as the regular employees. So we need to segregate what kind of access or how to onboard them and what to provision, and we need to keep track of what access and when to terminate that access or when to do the offboarding. So it becomes a pain point at a certain point of time, and we lose track of it. So these are the challenges that we see because of that. So yeah, again, onboarding the business partners or contractors, vendors, it becomes time consuming. So we already have a short time for the engagement, and on top of it, this processes, tedious processes, creates certain roadblocks for us. Due to a broad range of applications or partner ecosystem, granting access is a tough nut to crack, right? So what access and how to track that access, which is provisioned. Access control becomes monotonous or repetitive. These are the things that we need to carry out again and again. Like, we onboard someone for a short duration of time, and then we have to offboard them again and again. They will come back, and so that is like repetitive work. So if we can automate using the EIAG, then it helps us to reduce that workforce that is required there. And also with a limited, due to limited engagements, it becomes hard to gain complete visibility who has access to what, or there is a risk basically, right? So deep provisioning when the employee or external employee does not need the access. Has the access been deprovisioned or not? So to keep those measures in place, it becomes, and sometimes if we miss, then there is a security risk. So EIG definitely helps us to automate all those processes. Access rights needs to be continuously updated. So again, that is something like a recertification or the governance that can be implemented using EIG. So who has access to the resources, who no longer needs access, and which business users have the access, right? So these are our challenges, and that is where EIG comes into the picture to solve the problem that we have. So typically on the left hand side, you can see the actors, and what is unique about the solution. So we have the custodians, identity custodians. So there is a super custodian from the main organization who has authority to onboard the partner organizations. So we can onboard the partner organizations, and then once we onboard the partner organization, our super custodian can onboard external business partner employees, and then give them the authority to work as the identity custodian. So a particular employee from that partner business organization will have authority to govern the access for all the employees. So that identity custodian can onboard other employees, and then their access can be managed accordingly. Uh, so like onboarding of an employee and then granting the access, so that those employees can log into the portal, they can request the access they need, and then identity custodian mainly, or the entitlement owners, they can act as the gatekeepers and they can approve the access that is needed, and we can set up the recertification process so that access can be revoked in time, or even the identity custodians can keep track of onboarding and offboarding in this case. And similar to ORSUS Lifecycle Manager, EIG also helps us to do the provisioning, deprovisioning, or automation in variety of target systems. So these are typical features that EIG comes with. So creation of the identities, like provisioning of the identities on the target system, variety of target system, granting the access for those external users. Entitlement management, where they can request the access that is required, and custodians can approve the access which is requested, or even custodians on behalf of users can request the access if they know, okay, what needs to be, what privileges needs to be provisioned to the particular set of users. Workflows, so it comes with the workflows. We talked about the workflows in the ORSUS Lifecycle Manager. So similar way, we get the workflows here, which can be set up, and then that helps us to streamline the processes and reduce the workforce or the staff that is required to do the manual activities. Access reviews, again the recertifications, periodic sending the recertification request, and then authentication mechanism. So it comes with out of the box authentication and out of the box target systems or the adapters. So we'll quickly talk about the EIG. I know we are just on top of the hour. We hope we can extend by another 5 or 10 minutes post the session, because we do have ORSUS Access Manager to be covered. Like 1 hour is very short usually for this kind of a session. These are like a security products. There is a lot to talk about, but then yeah, we are trying to keep it within the timeline. So EIG value proposition, as mentioned earlier, this is a tailor-made solution. We have seen this problem. So CIAM, right? Customer Identity Access Management is something that is out there in the market, the terminology. But then we don't have, very much, like advanced options available in the market apart from a couple of those, but then yeah, it's a rare to find. And then that is where ISSQUARED has implemented this solution. So the way this is implemented is totally tailor-made, considering the challenges that we faced when we were doing the identity access governance for the certain organizations and their external business partners. So from our own experience, we have built this product. And once this product is implemented, once we decide to implement this product, ORSUS ISSQUARED will help to implement or do the requirement analysis and design and implement this solution within the timelines. And of course, it will be cost effective, and it can be again a custom implementation. We have certain use cases where we have tried to implement the solution as per the customer requirements. And we do manage services including 24/7 support or the other operations like customizations, integrations. So that is another value proposition if we get to implement the EIG. So I'll request my colleague Rakesh to take over from here for the ORSUS Access Manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Mukesh. Hi, everyone. Let's talk about ORSUS Access Manager. So in an organization, if there are hundreds of applications hosted either on premise or on cloud, and users have to use most of the applications on day-to-day basis, then they must remember the username and password to log into these applications. So this may be tiresome to keep track of all accounts and their respective password, the password expiry, password changes, etc. things. So to solve this problem, we have come up with the ORSUS Access Manager, a single sign-on product. So users have to authenticate with only Access Manager rather than individual application. This means that your application don't have to deal with the login forms, authentication of the users, or storing authentication detail information, etc. Once logged into Access Manager, user don't have to log in again to a different applications. So this applies to logout as well. So OAM provides single sign-out functionality as well. This means that user once logged out of OAM Access Manager, they will be automatically logged out of all the applications that is managed by the OAM. Along with this, it provides the functionality of multi-factor authentication and risk-based authentication. This makes login more safer and secure. Next. So these are some of the key features offered by Access Manager. It's based on standard SSO protocol and provides support for the OpenID Connect, OAuth 2.0, and SAML. It comes with the user dashboard. This is a single pane of glass to access all authorized applications for end users. Then there is administration console. This will be primarily accessed by the admins and operations team. From this console, they can configure and manage reams, resources, and all other aspects of the OAM application. Then we can do the OAM federation. It has a built-in support for the existing LDAP or Active Directory. We can implement our own custom providers if users are stored in some different registries such as relational database. Then it supports the identity broking and social login as well. So enabling the social login, it's pretty easy. It can be done by the admins. So it's just a matter of selecting social network you want to add into and done. So this does not require any code change in the application at all. Supports the multi-factor authentication using either of the SMS, voice, Google Authenticator, or email, and supports the risk-based adaptive authentication using users, network, device, and location context. And it has a built-in support for the Kerberos authentication as well. Next. So to do the adaptive authentication, it looks at the user's network, next location, and next device. So using these three contexts, it gets certain parameters such as user's IP address, user's geo coordinates, latitude and longitude. It looks at the user's geographic details such as city, country, region, time zone, etc. And it looks at the user's device details such as device type, operating system, version, browser, version of that browser, etc. So using these all parameters, it calculates the risk associated with that login. This risk can be classified as a low, medium, and high risk. If login risk is a medium or a high, then it will enforce MFA. And if risk is low, then it will not enforce the MFA. So risk and its associated action, this is configurable. So admins can tweak the settings based on the requirements. Next. So this is the typical use case I have divided this into two parts. First one, we will onboard the customer, and for that customer, we will do the prerequisite setup in the environment. So once customer is onboarded, suppose they have purchased all the MFA and RBA options, then our administrative team will work with them to configure their REAMs, user federation with their enterprise registry, etc. details. Then they will set up the applications for single sign-on. So this is a one-time work. After that, on day-to-day basis, users will access the application using the user dashboard. Now, while logging in, they have to perform the first factor authentication using the username and password. If the first factor authentication is successful, then adaptive engine will kick in and it will calculate the risk associated with that login. So if risk engine says user has to perform the MFA, then user will be prompted with the MFA options. So user has to perform the MFA either by selecting either of the MFA option, and once the MFA or second factor authentication completes successfully, user will go to the dashboard, and from that dashboard, users can single sign on to all the authorized application they have access to. Next. So these are the value propositions we are offering. We do provide the customizable authentication flow. So authentication flow can be tweaked as per the customer requirement. We can write custom extensions, and basically this is a workflow. So we can write a custom extension, and accordingly we can execute or run the workflow. Then we can plug and play MFA and RB options. So anytime admin can enable, disable these options. Then we do provide the subscription-based model. So all the MFA RB options are subscription-based. So you will be charged as you use it. And user federation with the existing AD or LDAP. Along with that, we provide support other registries by using a custom connector. Next. Right. So that's all from me.
Yeah. So we'll take some questions. Is that fine, Pratik?
Yes, sure. So I can see some questions. Hashmat Ali has asked how are you different from the competition. I think the value proposition was mainly the where we stand out in terms of customization, in terms of connectors, in terms of implementation. Definitely the price, and I think the value proposition which the team has shared, that is mainly the answer to that question. Hashmat, if you have any other question, I believe possibly those are answered. Then I think I can see another question. EIG works standalone. This is by Ambika Wazir.
Yes,
EIG works
it
standalone.
works. Yeah, yes, it works standalone. So Lifecycle Manager and EIG both are separate applications, even though functionality wise it is a similar, but it is a tailor-made for the external workforce. So yes, it can be implemented standalone.
Okay, there's another question from Ambika. Does it support SSO integration with legacy application?
We'll have to take a look at a case-by-case basis on that and see what works. Basically, the legacy application, not sure if it will have the SAML integration capability. If not, then we'll have to see if we can do any customizations. But we'll have to look at it case-by-case basis.
Okay, there is another question from Hashmat Ali. Are you in Gartner? Unfortunately, right now we are not in Gartner, but that process is already on. Gartner is basically evaluating all the 3 products of ours, and hopefully by middle of this year we should not be in the quadrant, but at least the listed products, preferred products into each of these categories. So yes, the Gartner process is in place. Okay, there's another question from Ambika. Does it support passwordless authentication?
Yeah, it does actually.
So those are the questions. Are there any other questions? possibly you can just open your mic and then ask them directly to the team.
Pratik, we got one more question. Does OAM
Okay,
support
perfect.
multi-tenancy? Yes, we do support multi-tenancy.
Basically, that is a USP of the product. It is tailor-made using the Kubernetes and underneath hardware. So it can be scaled horizontally as needed. And yes, definitely multi-tenancy.
So,
No issues.
Mukesh,
Ambika, you can continue writing your questions here.
Mukesh,
Or
can
if
you
you
hear
can,
me?
Yes, I
yes,
can
you can.
hear.
Yeah, so we have some other questions as well, which the team has sent to me. So how do they manage the group in applications? Do you need to create the same group in AD?
Management of the groups in the application, basically if you let's say you want to use, okay, I'm taking the question as like, okay, we have Active Directory and we have the applications. Those applications will be using those Active Directory groups for the management of the authorization, right? In that case, and even the AD identities for the authentication. In that case, ORSUS Lifecycle Manager comes up with a feature where we can do the business entity mapping, like applications can be onboarded, entitlements can be onboarded, and those can be mapped with the Active Directory. And then ORSUS Lifecycle Manager has the out-of-the-box integration connector with the Active Directory, where the accounts or the identities and the group and group membership provisioning will be automatic. So yes, I hope I answered the question. If not,
That
yeah.
means users can be provisioned to an application even if they don't integrate into an AD. That's a question.
Yeah, I mean, if they integrate with AD, then only they can use the like basically if they don't integrate with the AD, then we can directly provision into the application where we can develop a connector. We do have out of the box connectors available if that application is using the repository, like let's say SQL database, and where we want to provision, we can do that. Or if that application has a REST or SOAP or schema API is available, we can easily integrate with that application.
Okay.
There are multiple ways, but then yeah, combinations are possible. The question was very generic, yeah.
Okay. And for the EAIG, there's another question. That is for the EIAG. Where do we create the users for external? Where do we create the external users?
Yes, so typically internal employees are onboarded into the HRMS. So ORSUS EIG or EIG comes up with its own portal where the super custodian, so main organization who has deployed this solution, they will authorize someone as a super custodian, and then that person will have authority to onboard the external business partner organization. Once they onboard the external business partner organization, they will delegate authority as an identity custodian for that organization, partner organization, and onboard their employee. And then that employee then thereon can act as identity custodian and manage the workforce and their access for their organization. So, or yes, to answer the question, EIG comes with the portal, and it allows us to onboard the employees.
Okay, team. I believe there is no more questions. In that case, we have a feedback form as well. So if you have any further clarifications or requests, what we can do is you can fill up the feedback form and we will be addressing those questions accordingly. And as Pratik said earlier, this was a generic session introducing the product as such, about the different solutions we offer from ISSQUARED. And the following sessions, we will also have a dedicated session for each of the solution they offer. So I hope, we can take up that session. And if you have any clarifications, if you require to have a dedicated session, we can do that as well. And so then thank you everybody for joining. So you have my details here. So any questions, anything that you require from our side, please let me know. And of course, we'll be sharing the link for the YouTube link as well as the recording link as well. Thank you all for joining. Thank you, ISSQUARED team, and thank you all our valued partners for joining the session, and have a great evening.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all. Thank you.